participatory and community-based research approaches for well over 20 years. How have you seen the field change in that time? What challenges remain, and what gives you hope?
I was telling Julie this morning that in 1978, IDRC's $15,000 colonial investment catalyzed global participatory research networks. And Priya was born 4 years later in India to practice and promote participatory research. So in 2025, we will be celebrating 50 years of this movement. In the early years, in the 80s and 90s, much of the work on participatory research was linked to social and developmental transformation. Knowledge as a way of engaging with other actors in order to transform their reality, and starting with lived experience of communities and their knowledge. And participatory research helped to systematize that and interlocute with policymakers. In a few years, by late 90s, the, this, the technique of PRA took over development cooperation. And it became a use of tools as opposed to the normative and ethical roots of that approach, that whose knowledge makes a difference and how they champion systematization of that knowledge vis-a-vis policy dialogue or to engage with those who can make contributions to improve their life. So a whole bunch of people ran around the world doing PRA, but not necessarily making any impact. The academic interest in participatory research began around 2005, 2006. And a very dear colleague of mine yesterday phoned me. She returned from Baku. And she said, Rajesh, you are in deep trouble. I said, what happened? She said, every Tom, Dick, and Harry here in Baku is using the language of participatory research, and none of them mean the same thing as you taught me. So now we are suffering the possibility of too much popularity, meaning nothing. So what has happened in this period is that the issue of whose knowledge, what knowledge, has been sidelined. So last year, 2 years ago, we did a study on bridging knowledge cultures, community knowledge and academic knowledge. The book is free, available, downloadable, etc., open access. The analysis showed that academics assumed almost by birth what is research and what is knowledge. They have to socialize into it. The community does not consider knowledge in the same way. And therefore, when a lot of enthusiasts like us or our trainees, mentors, run around doing co-construction of knowledge with community, they assume that knowledge means the same thing to them as it is to them. But that's where the conflict arises. So I always ask people, you frame a research proposal based on literature review, but you are going to co-construction. How do you do literature review of community knowledge, which is not available on Google? How do you do that? Because without that literature review, how can it be co-construction? So now we have entered a phase in the development of participatory research, where our biggest challenge is to support the learning of young researchers, because that's where they are willing to explore this, but in their training as researchers, there's no space to even ask the question, what is knowledge? What do you do with this knowledge? And therefore, knowledge translation, knowledge mobilization, etc., become add-on. But if I'm doing a research program with a group of indigenous communities whose land is being taken away, they are party to this research. They are sharing the analysis and the findings, and they are willing to take their actions with our support. All we have to do as experts is to produce our part of the knowledge in a way that policymakers can understand. In addition, we can write any number of books that we like. But unless partnership with the local actors is such that they own the findings, they won't act on the findings. Then you'll have to hire a third party to do translation, which is what is happening around the world. People are doing that. So I think it's great that participatory research has become popular, but I'm worried that its ethical and normative dimensions need to be reinforced with the young generation.
Thank you for sharing that, Rajesh. Some really profound insights and thoughts there. And I will definitely be downloading that book that you mentioned about bridging knowledge systems, which sounds fascinating.